In this lesson, we will see how to create a standby cluster using Wal Archive method. So I'm going to use the configuration PG5433. The configuration has already been created here. So let's click on setup now. The initial parameters like location of your standby cluster data files, the cluster configuration files are similar to what we have configured in Wal streaming method. And now for Wal archive method, so I'm choosing Wal archive method and I'm choosing hot standby. So these are the next inputs that needs to be given here, the base backup location and custom backup locations. So the base backup locations on primary and standby. This is the location in which the base backup is taken for the primary cluster and the location of the standby is where it is transferred to. So right now I have a location here called U01 backup PG5433. I'm going to provide this location for both primary and standby. And this custom backup locations are the locations in which the WAL archive files are in the primary and are transferred from primary to standby. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide the same location here as well. Alternatively, I can also browse for these locations and then provide here. So choose U01 backup PG5433 is selected direct. So, and the next setting is their archive timeout parameter. So by default, it is 60 seconds. This setting would allow to ensure that every 60 seconds, a WAL archive file is generated in the primary and it's transferred to the standby and restored in the standby. And by default, I also enable the observer component. The most important aspect before creating the DR cluster using Wal archive method is the primary cluster will be restarted irrespective of whether the archives are already enabled or not. So you have to ensure that you get a proper downtime if you're going to create a DR cluster using Wal file archiving method. I've started the setup. So what are the steps involved here? So we create a base backup of the primary cluster and backup of the configuration files along with the manifest file which has the metadata, and the backup files are copied from primary to standby, and then once the files are transferred, the files are restored, and then we start up the standby cluster. So it is very simple and straightforward method. So the standby cluster is started and automatically the observer is enabled and the standby cluster is already up and running. So as you can see here, my configuration PG5433 is set up using archiving method, which is displayed here, and it's already in sync. So let's look at the configuration information here, which is very, very important. The main parameters that are updated for archive method are archive command, restore command, and archive cleanup command. And also the archive mode is enabled to on, and the archive parameters, archive timeout parameter is also enabled. If you look at the archive command, we have our own custom binary for this particular archive command, which would take care of creating the archive files and also transferring that archive files from primary to standby, and a restore command, which will restore this particular archive files that was transferred from primary to standby. And this cleanup command will ensure that whatever the archive files after restoring, it is cleaned up immediately. So this is how you create a DR cluster using Wal archive method. Thank you.